Most people think the 15-year mortgage is the obvious wealth builder. The rate is lower, the loan ends faster, and on a $400,000 mortgage using current benchmark rates, the 15-year loan saves almost $300,000 of interest. But that is not the full equation, because the 30-year mortgage creates something the 15-year mortgage destroys: monthly liquidity. In this model, the 30-year borrower keeps $822 every month. If that money is invested, the question changes from which loan has less interest to which cash flow path builds more wealth. And the answer is not guaranteed. To compare the two terms fairly, we need to remove the noise. Same home, same purchase price, same down payment, same property tax, same insurance, same maintenance, same future home value. Those things matter in real life, but for this question, they cancel. We are isolating one variable. Does the shorter mortgage build more wealth than the longer mortgage plus disciplined investing? The model is not trying to tell anyone what to do. It is showing what has to be true for either path to win. A fixed mortgage is not mysterious. It is just an amortizing loan. The monthly payment is set so that interest and principal exactly reduce the balance to zero by the final month. Stretch the loan to 30 years and the required payment falls. Compress it to 15 years and the required payment rises. The 15-year borrower is not getting free money. They are making a larger forced principal payment every month, and they are usually getting a lower rate for doing it. Now, the part that makes the 15-year mortgage feel unbeatable. Over the full term, the 30-year loan produces about $491,000 of interest. The 15-year loan produces about $194,000. Difference: about $298,000. If the borrower does nothing else with the payment difference, this is where the story ends. The 15-year mortgage wins because it paid less interest and built equity faster. But the entire debate exists because the 30-year borrower has cash flow the 15-year borrower does not have. A fair wealth comparison gives both people the same monthly budget. The 15-year borrower pays $3,298 for 15 years. Then the mortgage is gone, so the whole former payment can be invested for the next 15 years. The 30-year borrower pays $2,476 for 30 years and invests the $822 gap from the beginning. This is the core trade-off. The 15-year path invests more money later. The 30-year path invests less money earlier. The winner depends on the return earned by the early money. At 0% investment return, the 15-year path wins by exactly the interest saved, about $298,000. At 5%, the 15-year path still wins by about $203,000. At 7%, it still wins by about $64,000. The break-even point in this benchmark model is about 7.63% per year after fees and taxes. Above that, the 30-year plus investing path can overtake the 15-year path. Below that, the interest savings and faster debt reduction of the 15-year path dominate. Here is the honest scenario table. At 3%, the 15-year path is ahead by about $270,000. At 5%, ahead by about $203,000. At 7%, ahead by about $64,000. At the break-even, both are essentially the same. At 9%, the 30-year path is ahead by about $190,000. This is why the answer cannot be compressed into a slogan. 15-year saves interest is true. 30-year creates investment optionality is also true. The math decides which one matters more. But there is a real-world problem with a 30-year comparison. Many households do not stay in the same home or mortgage setup for 30 years. The National Association of Realtors reported that buyers expect a median 15-year tenure, while the recent median seller tenure was 11 years. In our model, if the comparison ends after 11 years instead of 30, the 30-year strategy needs about 9.65% per year to match the 15-year path. Why? because the 30-year borrower has not had enough time for compounding to overcome the 15-year borrower's much faster principal reduction. Historical returns make the 30-year case look stronger but still not guaranteed. Using S&P 500 total returns from 1928 through 2025 and applying an annual contribution approximation, the 30-year investing path wins in 56 out of 69 rolling 30-year windows before taxes, but the 15-year path still wins in 13 windows. With a simple 15% capital gains tax applied at the end, the 30-year path wins in 54 windows and loses in 15. The reason is sequence risk. Average return is not the whole story. If strong returns arrive after the 15-year borrower starts investing the full payment, the shorter mortgage can still win even when the market's long-run return looks high. The strongest practical argument for the 30-year mortgage is not that it always builds more wealth. It is that the minimum payment is lower. A household can invest the gap, save the gap, or pay extra principal when cash flow is strong. If the 30-year borrower voluntarily pays the same $3,298 as the 15-year borrower and the extra amount is applied as additional principal, this benchmark loan pays off in about 194 months, or 16.2 years. But because the 30-year rate is higher, it costs about $44,000 more interest than the true 15-year loan. That extra interest is the price of contractual flexibility. Taxes can move the answer, but they do not make it universal. Mortgage interest may be deductible, but only under specific rules, and only if itemizing actually gives an incremental tax benefit. The Tax Policy Center reports that the share of individual returns with itemized deductions fell from 31% in 2017 to 8% in 2022. Separately, it estimates that the share of taxpayers receiving a mortgage interest deduction tax benefit fell from about 20% in 2017 to 8% in 2018 after TCJA. On the investment side, taxable accounts can owe capital gains tax. In our simplified model, if the investment account faces a 15% long-term capital gains tax at the end, the 30-year path's pre-tax break-even return rises from about 7.63% to about 8.06%. In a tax-advantaged account, that drag may be lower. In a taxable account with dividends, state taxes, or higher rates, it may be higher. Wealth is not only the final number, it is also the path. Home equity is real wealth, but it is not the same as cash in a checking account. Accessing it can require selling, refinancing, or borrowing against the home. And households do face liquidity shocks. The Federal Reserve's 2024 SHED survey of U.S. adults found that 55% had 3 months of emergency savings, while 30% said they could not cover 3 months of expenses by any means. This is the part the spreadsheet can hide. A higher required payment can be mathematically efficient and still be operationally fragile. So, which mortgage builds more wealth? The honest answer is, it depends on the return earned by the payment difference, the taxes paid, the time horizon, and whether the borrower actually invests the gap. In the benchmark model, the 15-year mortgage saves about $298,000 of interest. The 30-year mortgage wins only if the $822 monthly gap compounds above about 7.63% after fees and taxes for the full 30 years. At shorter horizons, the required return can be much higher. The 15-year mortgage is not automatically superior because it ignores liquidity and optionality. The 30-year mortgage is not automatically superior because optionality without discipline is just spending room. The real lesson is not that one term always wins. The real lesson is that mortgage debt is not just a rate. It is a cash flow structure. And wealth is built by the structure you can actually sustain.